currently doing. So I'm starting the PPT. So I will just brief you about with our journey and what we are doing through the PPT. And at the end, we can have a question answer session. So we should keep the session more of interactive. So if somebody has a question in between, so they can just go ahead and ask. They can just unmute their mic and start asking the question. So I will be able to explain it in between. And later on also, after when the PPT ends, then also we can have a Q&A session. So I will now start with the PPT. uh, Hello Sai, I'm joining via laptop, so maybe you can just allow from the laptop as well.
Okay, sir, sure.
Yeah. Just a second. So this PPT is visible to everyone. Just check it once.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yeah. So Zovian is an aerospace startup. I've just already briefed you about it. So we started in 2014 from our education activities. So here are some education activities that we have done so far, and we are into all these things. So first one is CANSAT. So I have been to KCT as well. I guess 2 3 times. So we have conducted this type of activity there. So this is basically uh, a miniaturized satellite module. Most of you must have heard about it. So what happens that it collects the atmospheric data and you put it on a rocket. Then the rocket is launched to an altitude of 1 to 2 kilometers. From there, it collects the readings related to the atmosphere, and then sends it back to the ground where you can access those readings for the research purpose, and you can also get to know about your environmental data. Second one is balloon. So this is basically just like a weather balloon. So you put a lot of sensors as a payload, like paranometer is there, Geiger Muller tube is there. So this type of sensors are used to collect the atmospheric data as well as near space region data. So the balloon goes to an altitude of somewhat around 30 to 40 kilometers, and from there it collects the near space region data, and all the cosmic radiation whatever is coming from the deep space, that also we can collect with the help of this type of balloon, and we can click pictures as well. And another one is the small set module, just to make sure that students can well understand how space technology works. So this is just a brief what I have told you. So as you can see here, like in the front there are different modules. So it contains a set of sensors. So basically there is a processor, Arduino can be there, Raspberry Pi could be there. So you collect this type of all different type of sensors, and these sensors are connected to Raspberry Pi or Arduino. So in this case we collect the air velocity data, temperature data, light intensity data. So all this data is collected via sensors, and then it is fed to the Processor computes the readings and converts it into a logical value, which you can see, like in terms of, if we talk about temperature, so a sensor will be collecting the reading of temperature in terms of resistance. But in order to understand that reading, that resistance value has to be then converted into a temperature value, be it in Fahrenheit or degree Celsius. So that type of program is added to the processor, so that whatever the fuzzy value a sensor is giving, the processor will be able to compute an algorithm or run an algorithm to convert these readings and collect these readings and then transmit it to a receiver, which is connected to a laptop. And in the laptop, with the help of a UI, you can see what is happening around you. So when you develop this type of kit, it is put on a rocket as a payload. So then this rocket is launched. So when the rocket is launched, it goes to an altitude of 2 to 3 kilometers if it is a sounding rocket. So sounding rocket is a little bit higher end version of amateur rocketry, where the rocket is metallic, and in terms of amateur rocketry, the rocket is made up of cardboard. So what happened in 2014, that DGCA had introduced a ban on flying objects, which include drones, rockets, and other flying things. So DGCA has now come up with a policy for drones, and for this type of things, policy is yet to come. So as of now, you can use amateur rockets, that means the cardboard rocket, to conduct this type of activity. But sounding rockets still cannot be used in India, because sounding rocket is just like a missile. So it is basically a metallic rocket. So when you launch it, so there is a risk of there is a lot of risk to the nearby surroundings. So that's why, like, government is thinking a lot of taking a lot of time to think upon this sort of version of the rocket. So cardboard rocketry, you can do it in the college premises, or as a club you can run these activities. So balloon, I've already told you. So this balloon you are seeing here, so ballooning is also divided into two parts. So first one is the latex balloon, and other one is the polyethylene balloon. So latex balloon, when you launch, it stays there in the uh, atmosphere for around 3 to 4 hours. And if you talk about the polyethylene balloon, which was used in Google Loon project, so that balloon stays there for around 4 to 5 days minimum, and it can go up to 20 to 30 days as well. So that balloon costs a lot, and this balloon cost very much, a lot of specifications are there for this type of balloon, and it ranges from 10,000 rupees to 50,000 rupees, whereas polyethylene balloon goes in lakhs, 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs. So this is why when you conduct this type of activities for research purpose, most of the time latex balloon is used, and the size of the balloon is decided on the basis of the payload, like what is the mass of the payload and various other things that you are putting in inside it. So this is how you decide what is the type of balloon that you are going to use, and what will be the air volume of that balloon in order to lift the payload. Then this is a small set module. So this is just like a 10 by 10 by 10 centimeter cube, basically a CubeSat, 1U CubeSat, which can be utilized to understand the working of actual satellite, and then get the data in a same sort of manner that you have seen in the CanSat thing. So far we have interacted with 11,000 students in 35 institutes and 21 states of the country, and this is what we have done so far in the education domain. So now coming to the satellite technologies. So at one side you can see the different satellite components. So we have the availability for satellite components for various category satellites, ranging from the small to micro satellite. And then coming to the other solution, which is currently we are working upon from last 1.5 years. So we are developing a nano satellite constellation, which is based on a passive radar technology. So this is being done for the first time in anywhere in the world. So this is the patented technology that we have been working upon. So I will take a few minutes to explain this technology, so that you can also understand how this type of thing can help to collect the data from the Earth's surface and how this type of data can be utilized. So currently, you see that there are a lot of problems happening around the earth. There are a lot of extreme weather events we are seeing. You see a lot of news coming around there in newspapers and social media and other news channels that uh, there is typhoon in US, there is this in US, there is that, and recently we saw Amazon fires. Then there are extreme weather events happening in the oceans as well. A lot of ships are facing struggle, and maritime industry is also facing struggle due to this. And on the other hand, we have glaciers melting very fast and sea levels are rising. Due to this, not only farmers, not only industries, defense, and all the people across the world and all the industries across the globe are facing various problems. So now, what happens when we talk about the climate change? That when the glacier melts, it increases the ocean levels. So due to this, what happens that all the people who are living in the coastal region, they face this challenge when the sea level or ocean level rises. It keeps on removing the soil near the coastal region, and the land which was there, like suppose if we talk about Mumbai, there might be some areas where people used to live, but now these areas will not be habitable, just because that the ocean is taking away that land, and due to the rising sea levels, this particular area is not habitable now. So the same thing is with the extreme weather events. Like if you talk about the drought, so drought can lead to forest fires. So suppose there is a particular area where the drought is there from last couple of like time, like around 7 to 8 months. So what will happen that all the vegetation in that area will get dry, and there is a huge risk of a fire in that particular area, which will again result into a barren land. So this is how one incident can trigger a lot of changes in the environment. So what is happening now that all these activities which you are seeing here in these images, like in this one, when we talk about this climate change in terms of glacier melting, this one when we talk about the fires and droughts. So what is happening that all these changes are currently being monitored with the help of bigger satellites, very big satellites, 11,000 kgs, 1200 kgs. So this is a satellite which sometimes takes around 1 to 2 years in development, and there will be a lot of manpower you'll have to put in this type of satellite. I just need to check, all of you are able to see the PPT, na?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we
Okay,
can hear.
okay. So all these satellites are very big and bulky, and volume and mass of the satellite is very high. Then if you compare the cost, so this type of satellite will cost somewhere around 500 to 600 crore rupees. So if you want to put this satellite, most of these satellite will go into the geo orbit. So geo orbit will be there, or heo orbit, which is higher earth orbit. So what happens that the more higher you go, the satellite becomes bulky. So this is the traditional satellite with which ISRO launches, or all other space agencies are launching from last 40 years. So what happens that in order to get this type of information, there are two ways you can get this type of information. First one is using the imaging satellite. So a satellite will be launched and it will capture the images from all across the globe, and then that data will be utilized to process and further take out the information from that particular images. So what happened that if you put a imaging satellite, so you can only take images if it is a daylight situation. You cannot take images on the night side. So earth will be having one side the day will be there, and on the other side night will be there. So if a imaging satellite is passing over the area where the night is there, so you cannot take imaging data from that particular area. So that is one problem with the imaging satellite. Then other problem is that imaging satellites are not something which are meant for all weather conditions. So if there is a particular region where there is a extreme weather event, or a typhoon is there, or or say some tornado is there, so that particular area, or a cloud cover is there, so that particular area you cannot access with the help of imagery. You will just be able to capture the clouds. So then in order to get the images from that particular area, you will require hyperspectral imaging, infrared imaging. So all other technologies you will have to use in order to get that type of information from the imaging satellite. Then the other solution which is available is radar. So there are radar satellites as well, but the problem is with radar satellite is the revisit timing. So yes, there are some satellites which are there in the geostationary orbit and collecting a lot of data. But if the satellite is radar satellite is not in the geostationary orbit, that particular satellite may take from if you talk about the revisit timing, it may take from 4 days to 31 days in order to revisit the exact same location and capture the data. So that means, suppose if we take average number, so if a radar satellite is there and the revisit time is around say 12 days, so that means that the same location on which the radar satellite is currently there, that satellite will again come to that particular location after 12 days. So what is happening in those 12 days, you don't have any idea. You'll only be able to monitor that change only when that satellite revisits after 12 days. So that is the big problem that the industry is currently facing. So now what we are doing is that there are already various navigation satellites there in the medium orbit. So ranging from GLONASS, GPS, IRNSS, Baidu, QZRSS. So all these satellites are meant for navigation purpose. Some of these constellations are global navigation satellite constellation, and some are regional. So if you talk about Indian navigation constellation, so that's a regional navigation satellite constellation. If we talk about GPS, it is global navigation satellite constellation. So all these satellites are currently there for be it local area monitoring in terms of India. If we talk about INSS is there, and if we talk about global navigation scenario, GPS is there, GLONASS is there, and Baidu is again meant for China region only. So all these satellites are currently beaming up the signals toward Earth surface. So this is how we get our location in our cell phone. When you just go outside, or you go ahead with the Google Maps, or you just try to reach from point A to point B, what do? You just open your application. Google Map is there, and different applications are there. You are easily able to see your location inside that application. So how this is working? So this is working because at a single time, many satellites are available above you that are continuously beaming up the signals, and with the help of triangulation, you are able to see your location inside that app. So now at the same time, all these signals are getting reflected back to space. So what we are doing is that we are putting a satellite constellation in LEO orbit, and we are tapping onto the reflections of these signals. So by tapping onto the reflections of these navigation satellites, we are able to tell what is happening on the Earth's surface. So you can see the navigation satellites here. Navigation satellites are beaming up the signals continuously on the Earth surface, and these signals are getting reflected back to space, which we are capturing and telling what is happening on the Earth surface. So we are deploying around 70 to 80 such satellites in the LEO orbit. So all these satellites will be tapping onto the reflections of the reflected signals of the existing navigation satellites, and will be telling us what is happening on the Earth surface. So now what exactly we are getting from this, what type of data we can get from this, and how that data is useful, that I'll be coming on to the next slide. So this is what we are currently doing, and if we compare this satellite, the one on the left side with the one on the right side, so the satellite on the right is, if you want to compare the exact size of the satellite, so you all might have seen a soda can of 2 liters. So what is the height of that soda can? So this is the same height exactly, just like a replica of the soda can, or you can say a shoe box. So this is the size of the satellite, 10 cross 10 cross 30 centimeters. So this is a single satellite. If you compare it with the bigger satellite, this is 1/100th in the dimensions. And if you talk about the costing, so the satellite on the left side costs some 600 to 700 crore rupees, whereas on the right, it will cost somewhere between 2 to 3 crore rupees. So there is a huge price reduction, there is a huge mass reduction, and there is a huge volume and power reduction. So now, what is the so we can launch 100 such satellites in the same mass category and same cost. So what is the advantage of such type of satellite? So what is happening here? As I told you, we are tapping onto the reflected signals. So existing satellites are there in the geo orbit. So suppose there is a radar satellite. So radar satellite, what it will do? It will transmit the signal from the geo orbit, 36,000 kilometers. Then again, it will tap onto the reflections, again 36,000 kilometers. Then again, it will process the data and transmit the signals to the ground station, which will then again compute that data in order to provide services. So there is a huge amount of delay which is happening due to that radar satellite, which are already there in the 36,000 kilometer orbit. And the other thing is, if you talk about the lead time and what happens that when a satellite is decommissioned, so all these existing radar satellites, they are meant to serve for 5 to 6 years. So that means you are taking 2 to 3 years for the development of the satellite, and then you are taking another 5 years just to wait that for the satellite to be decommissioned. So that means the technology which was available 7 years ago is currently being used in the orbit. Whereas when we talk about cell phones and other electronics, we can see how fast the technology is changing. So with the help of these satellites, we can not only keep on updating the technology because the satellite cost is low, and these are quad component satellite. So you can keep on updating the technology as well. And coming to the data accuracy, so the data accuracy will be far higher as compared to the existing satellite. And coming to the data availability, so as I told you that radar satellite or existing satellite might take 4 days to 31 days in order to revisit. These satellites, if clubbed together, has a revisit time of 30 minutes to 45 minutes. So if the revisit time is 30 to 45 minutes, that means you can provide near real time data to all the industries that require such type of data. So this is the satellite, the prototype of the satellite is already ready, and we are currently doing the testings at the ground level. And soon we'll be like putting it up into the exact flying model of a 3U structure, and we are expecting the launch by next year. So this is the type of data we can get from this type of satellite. So fleet monitoring, sea ice measurement. So that means there are glaciers that are melting, and maritime industry faces a lot of challenges due to the sea ice, and they need to navigate the ships properly. So this type of data can help for the better navigation in the deep oceans. Then sea wind velocity, which is another thing required for the safer navigation purposes. Mobile object and glacier shift monitoring. So as I told you earlier that climate change is happening, glaciers are melting at a very fast pace. So we can monitor the changes in terms of glacier melting and can predict what can happen in the near future. And wave heights, altimetry of the oceans. Then there are a lot of advantages which this type of data can provide to the troops that are placed in the mountain region. Like if we talk about the Siachen Glacier, so there are troops that are currently serving there. So this type of data can also be useful for them, because with this type of data we can predict um, uh, at, predict the glacier meltings, and through which we can tell that this might be the timing when the avalanche can occur, so that they can basically put their troops from one location to other, and move them from to a safer location. So basically it will be helpful for the troops in the mountain region, maritime industry, navy, and oil and gas industry. So this is what we are currently doing, and testing is going on for this payload. And coming to the socio-economic impact of this thing, as I told you, environment concerns are there. So lot of losses are happening due to the disasters and extreme weather events. So this is what the satellite constellation is targeted for. So we have been supported in this project by the government of Karnataka, Department of Science and Technology, and Invest India is there, DIPP Startup India. So all these organizations are currently involved in terms of support for this particular project. So this is what we are doing. So now we can just start with the questions, or if somebody has doubt regarding this thing or the other things that I have gone through, so you can just start coming up with the question and answers I will be giving. So we have like around 25 to 30 minutes. So probably interaction would be a much better thing to go ahead with this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, Ankit, thanks for the presentation. So this is Kumar
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Hi,
So
Kumar. Yeah.
yeah, so what is the lifetime of the small nano satellites which you mentioned? How long
Yeah.
can?
So lifetime basically depends on two to three things. First one is the battery life. So how long the satellite can sustain in the orbit with the battery and the solar panels. Because what happens that whatever power, whatever solar panels, whatever power they generate, so that is not enough for a battery to get fully charged. So then the other thing is what type of power consumption is happening on board, and how much the power is being used for the transmission purpose. So club together all these things decide how much power is being consumed by the satellite. So in our this type of satellite that we are developing, we are expecting a lead time of around 2 years. So satellite will be staying in there in 2 years, and after that a replacement will have to be introduced after the 2 year of lifespan of the satellite.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Other question?
So there's a question in the chat box. What is the future of visual or radio astronomy in India?
Mm-hmm.
Because of most startups and government agencies are busy with rockets.
Okay, so yeah, not all the startups are there in the rocketry, as you might have following the news recently. There are three startups in the rocketry currently that are working on the thrusters or the rockets, and yes, there are a lot of startups working in the satellite domain as well. And coming to the government agencies or ministries, they are also quite a lot working on the lot of aspects of the space bill is also getting introduced. So government is now trying to open up the industry for all sort of aspects, not only the rocketry. So yes, there are a lot of startups working in this particular domain as well, like the one I have mentioned. Basically it's more of an analog and radio sort of thing only. And coming to the astronomy, radio astronomy part, uh, there is, I think, no startup in particularly the astronomy domain. Why? Because if we talk about a startup in astronomy, so how the startup is going to generate funds out of it. So if there is a viable business plan for radio astronomy, then obviously there will be startups. You'll be seeing the startups coming in this particular domain as well. But as of now, I don't see anything like a startup can generate money or generate do business with the help of radio astronomy. So that's why the radio astronomy is mostly handled by research institutions. So I was there in IIT Indore last year. So there is a few developments they are doing related to the radio astronomy in terms of like data collaboration and all. So IIT Indore, I saw that a few students and a team is working on radio astronomy. But apart from that, I haven't seen anyone working in the radio astronomy side. So other question: what all wireless telemetry technologies Zovian is using or had worked on? Yeah, so currently this is basically a L-band satellite. The GPS satellites are L-band satellites, L1, L2. So we are tapping on those signals. And coming to the data, that how we are getting the data from the satellite. So we are figuring out with the ISRO and government side, like if this type of constellation is being deployed. So then on the downstreaming of data, like when the data is processed on the satellite after catching those signals. So what is the best way or best frequency to transmit that type of data to the ground station, because this will be the high throughput satellite, because at a time we are capturing a lot of signals. So data throughput has to be quite higher in terms of sending this type of data to the ground and using this data for further services. So we are working on that in terms of downstreaming. But coming to the data catching, like how we are tapping onto the data and what is the frequency of that, that is L band and L2 band. Other question is, will this type of nanosatellite might risk the risk of higher space debris? Is there chance of having big space crash? No. So what happens that UN had given a mandate. So United Nations Outer Space Office is there. So they only take care of the launch from the private space vehicle. So suppose if a private space vehicle or a PSLV is there, or a SpaceX is launching the satellites, so they also need to see whether the satellite is having the particular approval required for the launching or not. And UN Space Office only takes care of the orbital slots. So all the satellites you see, be it Planet Labs, Starlink satellites, all these satellites will be registered with the UN Outer Space Office. So they have this sort of details, like which orbit slot is available, which orbit slot is particularly given to a company for, SpaceX is launching initially 12,000 satellites. They have planned for 42,000 satellites. So they might have already reserved the orbital slots for 12,000 satellites, and that orbital slots might have already been booked with the Outer Space Office. So if startup approaches that we need this particular orbital slot in which the SpaceX satellite is already there, so you cannot get that type of orbital slot. So obviously this type of risk is not there. No particular satellite is going to be there into a orbit where already a satellite is there. So there is that type of risk is not there. And coming to the decommissioning of the satellite, suppose a satellite stops working after 2 years, then what will happen to the satellite? Whether it will add to the space debris, or what will happen to that? So UN has also come up with one more regulation, that whatever the small satellite is going into the space, you need to have a deorbiting kit. So if a satellite is decommissioned and the lifespan of the satellite is over, so that satellite will basically deorbit itself, and will try to go into the orbit where it is automatically get attracted to the Earth's surface. So due to the gravitation pull, Earth environment the Earth envelope starts. So with the friction and all these things, the satellite will automatically get destroyed while entering to the Earth surface, towards the Earth surface. So this is how the space debris issue is being tackled due to the rising number of satellites. So if a student satellite is also there, education institute is launching the satellite, they also need to put that decommissioning or deorbiting kit in that particular satellite. So doesn't radar satellites work in low space orbit? It would be faster for collecting information. Yeah, so what happens that radar satellite are mostly meant for slow movement. So now suppose, as I told you, like currently what is happening, whatever satellites are already there in the orbit, in geo orbit or higher Earth orbit. So when you put the satellite there, so a satellite will be able to stay on a place, or will be able to get the data of a particular place for a longer period of time. But the moment you start decreasing the orbit, if you go from higher Earth orbit to lower Earth orbit, so the velocity of the satellite will be higher in the lower Earth orbit. So a single satellite will not be able to monitor a particular location for longer period of time. So that's why you need to have a satellite constellation in lower Earth orbit, and a single satellite will not be of any use in lower Earth orbit. So that's why lower Earth orbit requires a satellite constellation, and a single satellite, if you want to put, that will go into the higher orbits. Next question is, what are all the licenses? Yeah, so licenses depends on what type of service the satellite is giving and what type of hardware you are launching with the satellite. So in our case, it is more of a radio data collection hardware. So when we compare it with the imaging satellite, so imaging satellite will require more permissions as compared to the radio data collection satellite. Why? Because imaging satellite will fly over other countries also. So there are some areas which you cannot just capture the pictures of a military base or any other government premises and just put it on the website. So there are a lot of concerns regarding that. So you need to follow all those parameters, all those rules, and whatever things are existing in this particular domain. So India also has its remote sensing policy. So if you are complying, you are liable to comply to those policies. So if you are breaking the rules, or if you are just not following those guidelines, then there are a lot of sanctions which international community can place on the company. So in order to transmit the data, you need to have the license from the ITU, International Telecommunication Union is there. So they basically uh, give the licenses to the various companies, and in India you have Ministry of Telecommunication. So if you are beaming up the data, whatever data you have collected, you will be beaming up the data. You need to purchase that spectrum on lease from the government, and once you have the spectrum, you can beam the data towards the ground station. How do we manage thermal aspects of nanosatellite? We don't have enough space to equip with uh, where is the question, with the active thermal control system. Yeah, so coming to the thermal aspect, so what happens that uh, when we talk about space, so you can have induction or conduction. So now conduction happens in the satellite. Suppose a particular processor is there and it's heating up, so you can connect that processor with the internal body of the satellite with the help of heat pipes, or whatever technology is used inside that. Because I'm not into the mechanical thing, I will just give you a brief idea how that works. So conduction happens only inside the satellite, because space is there. In space you can do induction part only. So whatever heat is being generated on board, it has to go away with the induction method only, sorry, radiation method only. So what happens, you deploy radiation panels. So most of the satellites, if you see the picture of satellite, I will show you here. Here, so you see the satellite. So what will happen that there will be a particular surface which will be meant for radiation of the heat which is coming from the processors. So you need to radiate the heat from generated from the processor in space, in order to get rid of the because heat can destroy the processor also and other components also. So radiation is the only method which is used to get rid of the heat which is being generated into the system, space system, in the space, be it satellite, be it international space station, be it bigger satellite, be it smaller satellite. So all the spacecrafts, all the satellites, they use radiation method only for heat dissipation from the systems on board. So active thermal systems are not there. So this is the only method which is used for the heat dissipation thing. Does India has any competition with other countries? Can you just uh, Tell me like what exactly you want to know regarding this competition in what sort of thing? Competition between ISRO or any other space agency, or you're talking about private sector? Upul can just give more details about this question. And what is the concept behind SpaceX rocket landing? So this I don't think that answer is required. You can just Google through it, because I will not take time on this type of questions explaining the general things. Your take on vertical landing, future both in the world and most importantly in India. No, we are not going to work in the rocket domain. Our main thing is to work in the satellite thing only and provide data as services via our platform. And coming to the future for vertical landing. So ISRO is also working on vertical landing and reusable rocket thing. So they are targeting their rockets for I think 2028 or 2030, that they will be also going ahead with the reusable rockets. So what is the importance of this in India? So I will just give you an example. Say you are there in Coimbatore currently, and you want to go to Chennai. So if you want to go to Chennai from Coimbatore, what you will be doing? You will be taking Shatabdi or a flight. So we will talk about Shatabdi. So let's say you have booked a ticket for Shatabdi and it is costing around 1,000 rupees in order to travel from Coimbatore to Chennai. So now, why you are paying this 1,000 rupees? 1,000 rupees is basically the service cost of the train that you are paying for. So now there are suppose 2,000 passengers in that particular train. So all these 2,000 passengers are paying 1,000 rupees. That means 2,000 rupees, oh sorry, 1,000 rupee per 2,000 people. That means 2,000 into 1,000. That's what train is generating with a single side journey. So now imagine what will happen if you just board on the train from Coimbatore, Shatabdi train just board onto the Coimbatore, and train reaches Chennai. Now when the train reaches Chennai, so the train is destroyed. So that means you just take the train and destroy that. So now another passenger which is coming from Chennai and going to Coimbatore, another train will be made for that. So now imagine what will be the cost of the ticket in that scenario when the train is just getting destroyed after a one-sided journey. So that ticket cost will automatically shoot up to 10 lakh to 20 lakh rupees, because you are just destroying the train after one-sided journey. So this is what happening with the satellites when the rockets are not reusable. So now you launch the satellite in the PSLV goes into the space, and all the things are some things are left in the space, some things are destroyed on the ground, some of the things just land into the ocean. So there is no reusability. So that's how the satellite cost shoots up and touches sky. So the rocketing thing is due to this particular scenario only, that the rockets are currently not reusable. So SpaceX when started reusing their rockets, so now the launch cost of SpaceX has come rapidly down just because of this factor, that a rocket is being currently reutilized for the launch purpose. So this is how they were able to cut down the costs. So this is the particular thing which will be able to help us to go to Mars. If there is no reusability, then the cost of going to Mars will be very, very higher. So reusability will make the cost cheaper, and that's how the mission will become more viable as compared to the current technologies. So what is the operating system that is being used in CubeSat, and what programming language? Yeah, so it depends on what type of yeah, you have asked CubeSats. So I will talk about bigger satellites and CubeSat both. So in bigger satellites, they use their own language because the processors are space grade. And for programming the space grade processor, there are specific softwares and specific language available. Then coming to the CubeSats, in general scenario, if we talk about most of the companies, most of the research organization, they use Linux as an operating system and C++ as a coding language for general purpose scenario. But if there is a particular task which is required, let's say image processing has to be done on board, then you will have to put a lot of other things as well in order to do the processing on board. But for general purpose scenario like C++, Python, and operating system Linux for the operations. So this is what required for the processing and coding part of the CubeSat. About starting up CANSAT related startups in India, small scale. What initial step did Zovian take? Any insight? Yeah, so when we started in 2014, I was still there in college. So there was a little investment we did from our side. It was not much, 10 to 20,000 rupees, and same was done from the co-founder Raghav. So we both started it from the college time only, and our idea was to bring students on a single platform, bring hobbies on the single platform, where basically all of them can discuss and plan for new things related to the space. That's how we started from Facebook only, and then slowly we thought of bringing these space activities to the, you know, by providing hardware modules so that student can better understand how satellite works, how a rocket works. So in order to teach the students, we thought of you know searching what sort of different things we can do in order to provide this type of education. So this CANSAT is basically a competition that used to take place in US. At that time also it was there, now also it is there. So NASA, ESA, different space agencies used to conduct this competition. So there, the students had to design CANSAT within $1,000. So $1,000 means, if you talk about the current currency conversion, to 75,000 rupees. So if you are a student, then obviously you cannot afford those 75,000 rupees just to make sure that you can understand a space objective or space application better. So no student is going to pay 75,000 rupees just to understand the basic concept, because affordability is not there in this thing. So we thought of coming up with our own CANSAT design, so that a school student or a college student can also access that and get a basic idea how these things work. So this is how we started, and then we came up with our own CANSAT, which was a basic version, so that students can just grab onto that thing and learn the basic concepts for basic principle for the satellite and how it works. So this is how we started, and our CANSAT was around 2,500 rupees. So which is basically way cheaper than the existing structure which was available in the international market. So this is how we started in India with the CANSAT thing. And coming to the rocketry part of it, so in US, obviously the CANSAT was launched with the help of rockets only, sounding rockets. But in India, government had put a ban on sounding rocketry, because in India security concerns are there. So that's why they had put the ban on sounding rocketry. But again, if we talk about from the government perspective also, they are correct on their side as well, because if this type of technology gets in the hand of wrong person, then it will be a lot possess a lot of danger. So sounding after sounding rocketry, we moved on to the amateur rocketry. So amateur rocketry one can do in college premises as well. So in this thing also, you put the CANSAT on the rocket as a payload, and rocket goes to an altitude of just 100 to 200 meters. Then it ejects the parachute and slowly comes back to the ground. So this type of thing happens in the CANSAT domain, and that's how we started our business with CANSAT and rocketry in the education domain. Do we take this idea forward for other planets as well, like a nano satellite for Mars? It can potentially increase the mission objective. This type of satellite, the one which I had showed you in our mission, Sankalp Vishnoi. In our constellation, what we are doing, that we are tapping onto the reflected signals of existing navigation satellite constellations. So now, if we talk about this thing from Mars perspective, so for Mars there aren't any satellites that are already available in the higher Earth orbit. So if there aren't any satellites available, then we cannot tap onto the reflected signals from other satellites. So if we want to do this type of thing for the Mars as well, then obviously there has to be satellites, multiple satellites deployed there. Then only we can catch on to the reflected signals. Otherwise, from the feasibility point of view, for Mars radar satellite, a normal radar satellite will be much more helpful as compared to the one which we are developing. Other questions? If you don't like want to type, you can go ahead with the audio as well. You can ask questions via audio as well. Any questions from the project perspective, how we are doing, from the data perspective, from the opportunity perspective, that also you can ask. Sai, probably, if how to get started into learning CANSETs. So if you want to learn from the just from the basics of it, so there are a lot of channels on YouTube as well. Just you can Google CANSET or put the CANSET word on YouTube, you will get a lot of videos. And if you talk about learning it as a tutorial perspective from where you can get a book or something like that, then a lot of websites are there. So you can just Google CANSET keyword and search for various CANSET clubs. So a lot of CANSET clubs are there. In India, there is nothing like that, but for other countries only, you will have to search. So what I know of that in Nepal, students had built a CANSET, and they have a dedicated website for this thing. So just Google Nepal CANSET or something like that. You'll be able to get to know more about it. And from other CANSET perspective, like European Union or US side, so there also a lot of websites are there. So just for the basic principle, CANSET is basically something which collects data of the environment. So you need Arduino or Raspberry Pi and couple of sensors. Then you need to have a knowledge, a little bit knowledge of wireless communication, like how the data is transmitted. Then on the other hand, at the receiving side, you can basically receive the data as a receiver, wireless receiver. And coming to the processing of the wireless data, you can make the software with the help of programming software. The name of the software is programming. Programming software is used to collect this type of data. And if you know Python or any other language, then in C or Python also you can develop a software which can collect and showcase the data collected from various sensors. Coming to the rocketry part, for rocketry also you can get various tutorials on various websites. On YouTube also, many channels are there regarding amateur rocketry or sounding rocketry. So from there also you can get a lot of information. Last one, could you please share the names of such clubs? So in India, as I mentioned, that clubs are not there. But in US, if you talk about NASA CANSET, if you type ESA 9 CANSET, you type uh, Japan CANSET, you type these type of keywords. If you start typing, you will be getting a lot of data related to CANSETs. And some people have launched CANSET with the help of balloon also. So I had shown you the weather balloon or the high altitude balloon. So some of the clubs and some of the hobbies, they have connected the CANSET with the balloon, and they have launched the balloon to an altitude of 20 to 30 kilometers, and from there they had beamed the data. And coming to the last thing, coming to the wireless perspective, because if you are working on the CANSET or balloon thing, you need to have the knowledge of wireless communication. So best way to start wireless communication is basically start learning the SDR. SDR is software defined radio. Software defined radio can be used in the laptop, so you need not to buy a bulky equipment. Software defined radio dongles are also available online. You can buy these dongles. So these dongles can receive data from a very wide spectrum, and if you want to tap onto the data of much more broader spectrum, then you can go for the ham radio license. So ham radio license is basically it is a license which is provided by Ministry of IT communication. So how you can work into these things with ham radio licenses? You can buy the SDR dongle, but in SDR dongle you can only receive the data. But if you are working on transmitting the data, then you need a license. So the license you can get with the Ministry of Electronics and Communication. This license can be used for the transmission purpose and has a lot of other advantages as well. So the exam only costs 100 rupees. So you just write the exam for 100 rupees. You get the license. License will cost around some 2000 to 2500 rupees, and that's valid for lifetime. So there are a lot of things that you can do with ham radio license. And this hobby, building can sets, balloon sets, also it will be widely accessible to you. So there is a website you can search for aprs.fi. aprs.fi. I'm typing here in messages aprs.fi. So aprs.fi, this is a website which is widely used by ham radio operators. So what happens that APRS is a protocol which is used by ham radios, and it is generally used in high altitude balloons. So what happens that balloon or a CANSAT or whatever thing that you are doing, so APRS protocol can also be used in that. So what will happen in this? A radio chipset will collect the data, environmental data. So that data will be transmitted using a radio beacon. So this radio beacon hits the repeaters, radio repeaters, which are there across the country, and these repeaters send this packet to the internet. So this internet packet you can see from the aprs.fi website. So in India, if you open this website in India, also you'll be able to see who else is using this APRS feature right now. So what are different people doing with with their radio or with their high altitude balloon? You can see on this website live. Live tracking can be done using this website for any country, be it India, be it US, be it Japan. All the things you can monitor from this website live. As we know that in USA rocketry is quite normal nowadays. When do you think India will get to that level? And do you see any scope of startups related to selling hobby rocket, basic cancer, avionics systems? Yeah. So yes, you rightly said that in US though these clubs are normal, but in India it will take at least 5 to 6 more years for this type of clubs to surface, and this type of things to get normalized, because this is something which is not taught in our colleges. This is not something which is the part of our education system. So in US, if you talk about these clubs, then these clubs and these institutions are closely associated with colleges and universities. So in India, colleges and universities will also have to take a step ahead in this particular category. So when you are in first year or second year, you have a lot of time free for all these things. From there also you can start developing this hobby, and at a later stage you can do the professional things related to this particular technologies. Coming to the startup viability in hobby rockets, basic concepts. As I mentioned that right now there is there are no clubs here in India, so not a lot of people know about these things. So if you start selling just rockets or basic concept kits, then business viability is not there. Avionics systems, if you talk about, yes, avionics systems is something on which the business can be worked upon, but selling rockets and basic CANSAT kits is not a good idea. And in terms of rockets also, if you are selling the explosives or propulsion system with it, then government will not be allowing this to happen. So that's the problem with it. In small amount you can sell the explosives. With the If you're talking about amateur rocketry, mostly the explosive is sugar based. Sugar and potassium nitrate, this type of chemical is there. In small amount you can sell it, but at a large scale, coming to the sounding rocketry, you will not be able to sell it online or make a business out of it. Yes, after 5 years it will be viable. Can you share knowledge on mesh networks in wireless communication in Zigbees? No, for this particular thing, I don't have any much idea about. What about selling to school? School you can target, but what happens that in schools also, if you sell this type of kit, like say 2000, 2300 rupees, 2500 rupees, then their students don't, they don't pay this much money. In colleges you can expect that students will be able to buy these things, but in schools it is very difficult. But yes, if you talk about high end schools, or the schools that are in metropolitan areas, very big schools, there also you can go ahead and plan these things, because there they will be interested in these things. Yeah, so maybe we can conclude the session now. If any other question is there, you can just I am just putting my mail ID, or Ankit Bhateja 89 at Gmail, so you can put questions here. uh, or Instagram also you can ping me. So this is the mail ID I have given to you, and Instagram channel also I have given. So if you have any questions, so you can just mail it, or send me on Instagram. Yeah, thank you so much. So we'll now conclude the session. So if you have any other queries related to the project, or whatever activities that I have told you, so just you can feel free to mail me or reach out via Instagram or Telegram. Telegram also same username is there. So you can reach me anytime. So I'll be able to I'll help you out with your queries.
I, on behalf of SCDS KCT, want to thank and extend my gratitude to the speaker, Mr. Ankit Bhateja, for your presence and also for providing such an inspiring and thought-provoking address. You are a true inspiration for us, sir. Finally, I thank all the members who attended and graced the session in great numbers. Feedback link is in the chat box. Kindly fill it to receive your certificate. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right.